You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding. Here are your hosts, Craig Kurlop and Ziana McIntyre.
What's going on, everybody? You are listening to Investify. My name is Craig Kurlop, aka the Fi Guy, and I'm here with Z Money. Z is not with us today. It is such a sad day. She's got some stuff going on. We love her. She'll be on next week, I sure hope. And yeah, but that does not take away from today's episode with Mike Simmons. One thing I really like about Mike is he kind of started off in analysis paralysis like a lot of us do, and then he just exploded. And so if you think you're in that analysis paralysis stage, know that there's like better days ahead. And also know that it's one of those things that you just got to kind of keep doing. And so Mike is extremely articulate. He drops some really good bombs at the end. So make sure you're listening all the way through into the final four. And yeah, it's just a really, really intriguing episode. He just talks about how he went from house flipping to wholesaling to now he only works 2 hours a week. Literally 2 hours a week is what he's worth. He's still making over 7 figures every year. And yeah, it's just such an amazing story. So I'll let him tell the rest of his story though. Mike, get on the show. Mike Simmons, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing today, dude?
What's up, Craig? Appreciate it. I appreciate you being here. I'm having a great day and I'm happy to be here.
I see that Cowboys helmet in the background, man. Are you disappointed with this season or?
Yeah, listen, 12 wins and they won a playoff game, but I'm disappointed. I feel like they consistently don't do what they need to do to get to the next level. But listen, you can't help who you're a fan of, right? Like I live in Michigan, so I'm not a Detroit fan. So it could be worse. There's a lower level of hell, and that is being a Detroit fan. So I've been a Cowboys fan my whole life since I was a little kid, and it just never. So you can't really help who you're you root for. But yes, I was disappointed. I'm sick of losing in the playoffs or not even getting there.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But yeah, at least you're not a Lions fan. That's pretty much the low of the low. So anyway, we could sit here and talk football all day, but why don't we start talking about real estate and tell us how you first heard about financial independence and kind of where were you at that time?
Yeah, so it's funny, I kind of have like a 2-stage process that I went through to get into the world of being an entrepreneur. But back in around 2000, early 2000s, 2002, 2003, I was in my early 30s, and it occurred to me that I didn't love my industry that I was in. I went down a path that didn't ultimately make me happy. I was really not happy in my career. And so I started thinking, how can I invest so that I can retire early? Like my thought was retire early originally. And back then in the early 2000s, day trading was a big thing. It was all the rage, right? And so I started getting online and trying to figure out day trading and stocks and how to trade in the stock market. And what I've learned in subsequent years is I have a low tolerance for details. And so as I started looking into this, it was incredibly boring and difficult for me to stay on topic. And so I'd find myself on ESPN trying to figure out what the Cowboys were doing next. And I just sort of could never stay on point until I found real estate. And if you Google investing for retirement and kind of go down that rabbit hole, eventually you'll find real estate. And when I did, and I started reading success stories, and I was sort of a success story junkie for a while, and I know a lot of people probably can relate to that. But I didn't get tired of it. I didn't get tired of learning and reading and consuming. Next thing you know, I'm buying books and videos and things like that. But then the worst thing happened to me that can happen to most people, and I think this is what keeps most people out of real estate, honestly, or out of anything that they want to do or start, is I started consuming knowledge as an excuse for not actually doing anything, right? My excuse was, well, I feel like I don't know enough. I need to learn more. I'd buy another book. I'd listen to another podcast. I'd go to another seminar. And pretty soon, all I was doing was buying books, listening to people, and going to seminars. And there's a lot of people like that. If you go to any RIA, right, you just, it's a room full of people who most of which aren't really doing real estate. They want to, and they're thinking about it, but they don't have the nerve to get it going.
Yeah, I think that's super powerful, and I think that's something that everyone listening to this right now needs to just kind of like take a step back and think about. How many podcasts have you listened to? Like, you thought there was a lot of information back in the early 2000s. There's probably 100 times more information out there today,
1,000 times.
and it's probably more engaging, and it's probably a lot better. And so, like, the hole that you fell into of analysis paralysis, just trying to learn, and not do. I think it's very easy to fall into today. So I want everyone listening to this to just like think about where you're at right now and how long have you been wanting to invest in real estate. And if it's more than 6 months and you haven't taken action yet, I think there's a massive problem there. And I think you just the only way you're going to learn now is just by doing. And so,
Yep.
what was your next step, Mike? What actually got you that? What finally gave you the confidence to actually start making moves instead of just learning more?
Yeah. So I started in 2003 learning. I bought my first property in 2008. So 5 years of paralysis analysis, making excuses, whatever. So I was raised by a Marine. My dad was a Marine in Vietnam, infantry, frontline, very hard-nosed guy, kind of a Harley guy once he got out, worked at Ford. He was a tool and die guy, just hands-on, greasy hands all day, just working with his body. And he was a tough guy. And so excuses, fear, procrastination, none of those things were really tolerated when I was growing up. And once I realized, and it took me 5 years to really hit rock bottom with myself and come to the realization and admit to myself that I was not taking action because I was afraid. I was afraid of, and the crazy thing was I wasn't worried about losing money. That wasn't my fear. My fear was losing reputation, looking stupid, being made fun of, telling people, calling my shot, and then missing it and having to deal with that. A lot of people in life are like this analogy of, I don't know if you ever heard of it, like this bucket of crabs, right? When one crab starts climbing out, the rest pull them back down. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people are like that. And I had friends that I think were kind of like that, and they weren't trying to be mean or do anything to hurt me. It was just like they were in a miserable position. And so they were quick to goof on any idea that somebody had to get them out of that situation. It was sort of like, commiseration, and misery loves company. And so it took me 5 years, but when I finally did it, I can tell you about the deal if you're interested in hearing the details of that. But it was 2008, and go ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, real quick, I want to kind of know, like, how did you sever those relationships with your friends, or maybe you didn't sever them? How did you kind of get over that? Because I think it's true, right? Like, you've got these victim mindset people, and they're going to be in a victim mindset, and they're negative, and woe is me, and yada yada. But like, you're not getting anywhere with that. And so, yeah, and I think that's probably a lot of people's problems is just getting around the right people.
Yeah. I'm still friends with some of the people that I was closest to back then. I still meet up with them for lunch. It wasn't their fault. What I had to do was get over myself. But the way I did it was I didn't tell anybody. I started buying houses and flipping them, and I didn't tell anybody. And I'll tell you kind of how that turned out. That sort of interesting story. But that first deal, it was 2008, and prices were just plummeting. Right, they were going down like crazy. And in early 2008, I got a property under contract for the contract price was $80,000. Okay, this is Michigan, so it's a little cheaper housing here. $80,000, and we got our offer accepted. We started going through a loan process with a real local small bank, and in the middle of the process of getting the loan done, they went out of business, which wasn't super uncommon back then for small independent banks to sort of kind of flop upside down and go out of business. And they did. And we ended up losing our earnest money because we couldn't perform, and we lost $1,000. It was devastating. $1,000 was a lot of money. It's still a lot of money, but it felt hard. It hurt more back then than it would now. And so it took us another 6 months to find another deal. And we did, and we found a deal one street over from the original deal that we had under contract for 80. We got this one under contract for 40, and it was the same footprint, same house, exact same house, just one street back. And so we might have gotten our butt handed to us a little bit if had we bought the first one. So it was kind of like a blessing in disguise to lose that. But we got that deal for 40. Hired a contractor, put an ad in Craigslist, and I made one big rookie mistake that I'll never make again. Is I put an ad on Craigslist and I had 8 contractors respond back that they wanted to bid on the house. They wanted an opportunity to bid, and so I created an appointment for each of them 1 hour apart. So for 8 hours, I was stuck at this house. Guess how many of the 8 showed up?
2.
2. You're right.
Wow.
The one that was scheduled for 9 a.m. and the one that was scheduled for 3 p.m.
Oh.
And I didn't know the other ones weren't going to show up. So I just sat in this house all day long. I'll never do that again. But found someone. He ultimately did a good job. But at the end of the job, I got a call. Once he was done and fully paid, I got a call. No, I didn't get a call. I got a letter first. I got a letter in the mail that there was a mechanic's lien that was placed against my house. And I called and I'm like, hey, what's going on? I see that you have this lien. Like, I paid you guys. Like, I paid the electrician. Why are you putting this lien? And they said, we never got paid. And I said, but no, I paid the general contractor. And they said, we believe you. He didn't pay us. That's what didn't happen. And so this was the first time I realized that you need to have the subcontractors sign off that they were all paid before you pay your guy for the final payment. And so I learned how to negotiate with a subcontractor to reduce the lien that they were putting on. They had a little mercy on me. They didn't have to give me any breaks, but they cut the bill in half. But even still, after all of that, the house, we bought it for 40. We put 15,000 into it, and after all the holding costs and everything, and paying the electrician twice and all that, the end of the day, we made $15,000 on the property.
Wow.
And that was like $15,000. I've never seen that kind of money in my life at one time. My wife, who grew up really poor, really had never seen that kind of money, and she was like, "All right, let's do this, man." And so for the next few years, real quickly, the next few years, we started flipping houses as a team.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing, man. I think that first deal too, like it must have been scary in 2008 when everyone was telling you it's a bad time to buy real estate and it's a horrible market and all that. And so like, I guess how did you kind of assuage like those fears? Because again, right now I'm thinking of you like you're Mr. Analysis Paralysis at this point, and so you just jump in at kind of like the most shaky time in probably the last 100 years. Like, what got you going? You're just like, it's time to.
So I wanted to do it. I'm someone who just doesn't watch the news. So I wasn't really being inundated with all of the things that people were saying about real estate. I wasn't ignorant to it, but I wasn't getting beat over the head with it every night either, because I don't watch the news. But what really helped me was my wife and I joined a weekend. They called it a fly on the wall blueprint. It was a local real estate investor who put this clinic on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And me and my wife went to it. It was incredibly expensive for the money that we had at the time. It was $2,900 for both of us. And it wasn't even that good. It was like the content was weak. But what it did was it gave us belief. And we believed that we could do it. We had some of the basic questions answered for us during that workshop, even though it wasn't incredibly comprehensive. It was very basic. But all we needed to know was like, what does this thing look like? Like, what does it look like to flip a house? How do you start? What's the middle and what's the end? And how does that look? And we were in the room with other people who had done some level of flipping houses. And so we got belief. And I think, not to get overly dramatic, but throughout history, one thing that's kept a lot of cultures and religions and races able to go on the next day is belief. Belief is really powerful. And I think belief is what will get you there sometimes, and belief will definitely keep you from getting there. If you don't believe you can do something, you absolutely cannot, right? And then you can only do it if you believe that you can. It gave me belief, and that's how we got started. We didn't really pay attention to the news. It wasn't a big deal. We were watching all the flipping shows on HGTV. Like, that was giving us some confidence that we could do this thing, and we went out there and did it.
I love that, man. I love it. And so I want to just circle back real quick because, again, you're a new investor at this point and you're having some contractor issues. You had to pay this electrician twice to get this lien off your house. Again, great lesson learned, right? Like, honestly, I'd never heard that bit of advice before, is to either pay the subcontractors directly or confirm that they've been paid before you do your final payment to your general contractor. Were you able to go after that general contractor at all? Or was he just Ghost.
He ghosted me. I mean, off the face of the earth, just
Mm.
gone. Couldn't get a hold of him, wouldn't respond. I guess I could have tried to pursue him legally, but I didn't. I just moved on. Like that guy's an idiot. Like
Yeah.
I flipped 100 houses after that, and he got none of it because he was just short sighted on stealing $4,000 from me. It's just stupid. But
Yeah. Ridiculous. Okay, man.
I'm
So
way. By the way, I think this is a life lesson too. I'm way more about cut the loss, move on, learn from it, don't look back, don't dwell on it. I'm way more that than I am let's dig in, let's sue his family, let's try to take his business. Like I'm not that guy. Like karma will get that guy. I'm just gonna move on.
yeah, I think there's something to that too. Not only would that add a lot more stress, and I'm sure you saw it as 4,000, you're like, whatever, maybe if it was 40 or 400,000, then different story.
Sure,
But like,
sure.
yeah, you got to kind of figure way out those pros and cons. And so, all right, man. So first property was a success. That usually means there's going to be more after that. And so, what happens with your second, third, and fourth, and how did you scale up to 100 that you mentioned?
Yeah, there was more after that. And honestly, I told you I kept it a secret, and that was how I mitigated my fear of just flopping and falling on my face and being embarrassed. And so we didn't tell anybody, but we did start a Facebook page without our faces on it, and it was sort of like my business name, so there was no way to know it was me casually. And we started, building that page, and I got a call from the local, like, Southeast Michigan's largest newspaper, and from a reporter, and she's like, "We want to do a story on you. Are you willing to do that?" And I said, "Sure, let's do it. No big deal. I figure this thing's going to be buried on page, 17G. Like, nobody's going to see it." So they came out, did a little story, kind of waiting for the little blurb to come out. I'm at my parents' house on a Sunday, and they get a call. Happened to be from my uncle, apparently, as it turned out. And I can just hear my mom saying, "Wait, what? They're in the newspaper? What do you mean? They're flipping houses?" And I'm like, "Oh, we never told Annie. We never told my parents or anybody." Next thing you know, we're front page, full page, color photo of me and my wife standing in front of a house and a big write-up about our business. Man, my family, my friends were all like calling us like, what is happening? How do we not know this? And so some people were like amused by it. Some people were hurt. They were like kind of hurt that we didn't tell them. One of the big things that happened was at my company that I was working for, there were layoffs going on during this time, right? It was a rough economic time. And people were really mad because people were getting laid off. I didn't get laid off, but while people were getting laid off, this story comes out. Next thing you know, there's this rumor that I should get fired. People are advocating for me to lose my job because I have this other income. I don't need a job, according to them. He doesn't need the job. Why not fire him, right? And it kind of became this lynch mob. So I got called into the head of HR. This was a big international company. This isn't a small company. This is a multi-billion-dollar company. I get called into the North American HR director. And she sets me down. She's like, "I saw the article. I'm sure you've heard what's been being said." And I'm like, "Oh, here it comes. I'm going to get fired." And she said, "I just want to let you know, I think it's awesome."
That's
She's like,
amazing.
I want to know how you're doing it. Like, I would love it if you would spend a little time and kind of tell me how you did it and what you're doing. I'm really interested. And I think it's awesome. You have nothing to worry about. You're not losing your job." So I was like, that's awesome. So
Yeah.
kind of skated there, but and then I sort of did flipping, and I'll get to the 100 how I got there. But I was flipping houses and sort of doing one here, one there. Wasn't scaling it, but I did have that full-time job that paid pretty well. And I always tell people
Well,
my
sorry.
business was
What were you doing,
conceived.
Mike? What were you doing as a job?
Uh,
Just
uh,
curious.
yeah, I'm in Michigan, so it was automotive. I was working
Okay.
for an automotive supplier,
Okay.
and my specific job was I was a program manager, and I was in charge of building prototype seat structures, like the metal structure prototype. We'd build 100 of them. We'll crash them. We'll burn them. We'll stress test them. Do all the things we have to do. Re-engineer. Go through the same process until everything passes. So I was working on future model seats, basically.
Okay.
And so I tell people my business was conceived in 2008. That's when it was conceived. But it really wasn't born until I think it was 2012. It was a Friday night. I'm at work. It's late. It's 8 o'clock at night. We'd been working late all week to try to get one of our clients back on track with their program. We were behind, and they were in the building. The client was in the building that day. And the guy who was running the program, it was Ford. I hate when people are real vague, like it was Ford and they were awful. But I do drive a Ford now, so there you go. Um, but he was in the building, the guy who ran the program for Ford, and he asked me why we were late. He's like, "It's Friday night. It's 8 o'clock. What is going on with this program? Why are you guys so far behind?" And I told him the truth. It was a little shared blame. Like Ford was in charge of the basic engineering, and so we were taking their specs and building it for the most part. But we had supply chain issues and things, so it was some shared stuff. And I told him, just very honestly, the design had issues, and some of it wasn't manufacturable, and so we had to get some deviations and all this stuff. Right? I got to the end of my explanation, very honest explanation, and he took a step closer to me, face right in front of mine, and said, "You're a liar." And I was like, wow, it's 8 o'clock at night. My team has been here. They haven't seen their wife and kids all week. I haven't seen my wife and kids all week. And now I'm being called a liar. So I just excused myself from the conversation politely, went to my boss who was there. And I said, "Keith, it's 8 o'clock on a Friday. This isn't productive. Everybody needs to go home. The client's calling us liars. Like, can we just end this tonight? Like, it's just late and everyone's tired. No one's being productive anymore at this. It's just devolving, right?" And he's like, "You need to get your priorities straight." And I
Oh,
was like, whoa,
damn.
wow, punch in the gut. And I really liked Keith. But I said, "You're right." And I walked out. And that was the moment I decided I'm going to start focusing harder on this side hustle. And that's going to be my escape plan to get out of this career.
Yeah, man. What a powerful story, right? Like, it almost feels like it should be in a storybook or something like that, where it's like such a good lesson, right? Maybe it is. Maybe that's what you're going to pitch us at the end here. But I think that whole interaction with your boss, who you liked, said you need to get your priorities straight. Like, what a gut punch, right? But I just want to emphasize the importance of a side hustle or real estate, because if you didn't have that side hustle, that wasn't even passive income at that point. You had two jobs.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you had a side hustle gave you that FU money, or at least that confidence to be like, you know what, like, what am I doing here? Like, my wife and my kids
Yep.
are my priority. I need to get out of here. And any job that's taking me away from them, I got to get out. So, dude, kudos to you. I wish I could like be a fly on the wall during that whole interaction. Um,
Yeah, it
so,
was epic.
so I take it that was the last time you
I
walked through
actually
those
cleaned it.
doors.
I actually cleaned it up. The client called me an effing liar. I just cleaned it up for
Yeah.
the broadcast, but he was in my face, man. It was bad.
Wow. So did you end up? Was that the last time you walked through those doors? Did you quit right on the spot there, or?
I did not. I did not. I have a wife and kids. My wife is very conservative.
Mhm.
Um, and so what I decided was I needed to pack away a year's worth of salary in the bank sitting there so that I had a little bit of a runway to start to not to start, but to grow my own thing. So it took me a year to do that, but I quit a year later, and a year after that, my business gross profits, not gross revenue, gross profits, $1 million. I
Wow.
made more the year that I quit my business than I had made in the previous 20 years working for a company.
Wow.
And then it took off from there. And honestly, at that point, when I went from, like quitting my job to getting to 100 houses, I changed my strategy. I stopped flipping houses and I started to become more of a wholesaler, and my
Mm.
business exploded. And I've done 7 figures in profit ever since, every single year.
Wow, that's amazing. And so wholesaling was not really today. It's certainly more popular than it was. Must have been back in 2012, 13, like
Yeah.
hell, even like 5 years ago. And so I guess like, was there anyone that you followed for that strategy, or how'd you continue that?
Yeah. I actually joined a mastermind called Seven Figure Flipping. It was new in 2015, and it really taught me a lot because I ended up quitting at the end of 2014 and then spent 2015 building my wholesaling business and had done 7 figures by the end of that year. It's called Seven Figure Flipping. It was an expensive mastermind. It was one of those year masterminds where it's $25,000, and I was like, I knew the guy running it though. I knew the guy who was in charge. I had met him, had become friendly with him over the last few years, and I knew he was doing 100 deals a year in Southern California, and he wasn't working in his job. Like, he just wasn't busy. He was following his wife around, driving her crazy all day, and so he started the mastermind for something to do. And so I knew the guy was legit and joined and literally scaled up to 100 deals that first year and $1 million in profit.
Wow. So is it worth the 25 grand?
More than worth the 25 grand. It cost me 25 to make like a million that I wasn't making before.
Isn't
So
that funny? You know what's really funny is that people will pay $50,000 a year to go to college, probably $200,000 total, just to get an education so they can come out and make 100 grand, probably 70 after taxes and all that stuff. And like you said,
yep.
you're not really building wealth that way. But if you just invest $25,000 in an extremely concentrated thing that you want to do, a mastermind, a group, something, that's your tuition, and you're able to, I don't even know what that math is, what, like four times, like 40x your
Yeah.
your income in year one. And so I have to say, like,
Totally.
and I'm sure it's more than just the stuff you learned in that mastermind, the people, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, 100%. I've got lifelong friendships from that mastermind. I'm still a part of it. I actually am an owner now. So it meant everything to me. It made all the difference in the world. Some of my best friends in the world I found there. But, to your point, I always pay for coaching on anything, not just real estate. If I want to learn or do anything at a high level, if it's important to me to be good at it, I immediately look for someone who I can pay to help me get there because, the fact of the matter is I'm not 21 years old anymore. Time matters to me a lot. My time is valuable. I would really rather pay someone to accelerate my learning and pay for speed than to try to figure things out on my own. Because there's a lot of information out there. You can Google anything, but there's way more bad or misleading or, sort of half-hearted information than there is really good, solid information. And sometimes it's a needle in a haystack, right? You want to learn how to flip houses? Yeah, it's all out there, but I want it curated. I want someone to just give me the good stuff. Tell me what I need to know, what really works, what's been proven, and let me go. So when I started learning, I had a mentor when I joined that group. I mean, he told me something. I didn't question it because there's people out there that I call yeah butters. Right? They'll say, "Hey, I want to be in real estate. I want to flip houses. I want wholesale. I want to buy and holds, whatever. I want, short-term rentals. What do I do? How do I start?" And I go, "Well, listen, let's hear more about it." And they tell me your situation. Okay, great. This is what I would do. And the minute you start telling them what they want to know, they go, "Yeah, but in my market, you can't really do that." And I'm like, "Well, okay. What about this?" "Yeah, but that doesn't work. I tried it." It's like, all right, man, you're a yeah butter. It's just no matter what I tell you, you're going to have a yeah but, and that's why you're not going to succeed because you just always have you're more interested in why something won't work than in how it will work.
Yeah.
And I'm just a big fan of thinking about how it will work. I just spoke to someone before we hopped on this call, and I said, yeah, one of the greatest things that you can experience in your life is ignorance of all the things that can go wrong, when or being a little naive, to what you should be worried about. My daughter started flipping houses 4 years ago. She wanted to start flipping, and she only saw my success. She grew up seeing me flipping houses and wholesaling and all this stuff. She bought 3 houses in 3 weeks, flipped them, and made $60,000. She should have been terrified of 100 things along the way, but she didn't know to be scared. She only saw confidence from me, and she never really thought, she didn't even know people were nervous to do it. It's to her, it was like, who wouldn't do it? This seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And so sometimes not knowing, not having all that fear of people telling you what could go wrong. Like I said, I didn't know in '08 that the market was so bad. I don't listen to the news, so I wasn't 100% dialed into how bad it was. Maybe that would have scared me away. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. I mean, it probably would have, right? That's the thing, is like people, if you look for an excuse, you'll find one, right? It's much easier to find an excuse than it is to find a way. And I think you need to, if you want something bad enough, and maybe flipping isn't the right business for you, right? If you're listening, right? Maybe it's something else, but to go all in on it, 100%. And also, like, I mean, I had that kind of scarcity mindset when I was first starting out, that I didn't want to pay for coaching, that I could just get everything free online and
Me too.
and all that. And I'd watch YouTube videos, and I'd spend hours and hours listening to conflicting advice and all this stuff. This guy says this guy says that. It's like, damn, like, why isn't there just like a way, right? And I'm like you, dude. Like, I'm not good with details. I'm not really great at, like, I'm okay with analysis and stuff, but like the little stuff I just don't think about. And so people my wife makes fun of me for this. She's our health person in the relationship. She tells me to eat something, I eat it, I don't question it, because I know that she does all the research on nutrition, so I'm going to just do that, right? And so you need to find somebody ahead of you who will just tell you what to do, and you just got to execute on it.
Yep.
So,
Find someone who's where you want to be or knows what you want to know, and just do what they say. Like, be a good rule follower in that
Mhm.
case so
Mhm.
that you can get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
Someone, like I said, my mentor, he told me to do something and I did it. I didn't ask him why or say, oh, I don't know about that. I just did it. And guess what? You start following a blueprint that's been, proven to work, and you get success. It's very simple. You don't have to be creative to be successful. You just have to be diligent and disciplined enough to take the advice that you're seeking.
Yeah, I would say discipline and being okay with boring, right? Like I think it's really easy to get excited about something for a couple months, right? And then you kind of you let it go. But when you're trying to source deals for your wholesaling business, right? Like tell me a little bit about that. I guess like how did you source those deals? I'm sure you had to stay consistent with it. You didn't just send out one round of mailers and get 10 deals.
Yeah. Yep. So it's true. Marketing is something that there's this weird sort of I can't explain the phenomenon, but I only know it's real. There is momentum in marketing. If you start a marketing campaign, I don't care what it is, and we can talk about mine. And actually, I created I created 5 videos, like a video series of how I do direct mail because I was so sick of answering the question over and over. It's completely free, and I can give your audience that URL. But you have to be consistent with direct mail. I don't know why, but I've done this where I start doing direct mail and maybe I have a little success. I start getting a lot of deals. And then, this is a long time ago, but I would stop my marketing and I would sort of handle these deals. Mostly when I was flipping, I did this. I would start handling those deals, kind of get them going to where it's all, and then I would start marketing again. And it would take me 2 or 3 or 4 months to get back that flywheel, to get that thing moving again, to get more deals. And I don't know why, but it is. And so the biggest thing I can tell people is if they start any marketing campaign, I don't care what it is, from scratch, give it at least 6 months. You have to give it 6 months. If you don't, I've had a lot of people tell me direct mail doesn't work for them. And I think direct mail is fantastic in real estate. And they said it doesn't work for them. And I'll go, okay, cool. Tell me what you did. Well, I created some cards and I sent them out. I pulled a list. I sent them out. I said, great. What'd you do month 2? Well, nothing, because it didn't work. I was like, okay. Well, I could tell you why it didn't work because you didn't give it long enough. You didn't really give it a chance. So it's like going out on one date with somebody and saying, it's not going to work out. Like, dude, you went on one date, like, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just, there is momentum behind it. And the way that I got those 100 deals, kind of think you asked me that. Short answer is the vast majority of my deals over the last 7 years, I've gotten from direct mail. Pay-per-click, like Google AdWords, is a second place, and that one is my best performing marketing source right now. Direct mail, not as much. In Michigan, when COVID hit, we were doing a ton of direct mail, and literally overnight the calls stopped coming in because when COVID hit and the world was had the bejesus scared out of them, people stopped touching mail in Michigan, literally stopped getting their mail. They wouldn't touch it. They were afraid of getting COVID. And so my calls stopped and we just cut off the mail. But when we did that, coincidentally, people were being freaked out that they were going to lose their job and lose their house. And so they started, what do they start putting into Google? How do I sell my house fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was already in PPC and I kind of had dominated that market in my market. And we started getting tons of calls. And so it kind of like direct mail went away, but PPC surged. And so between direct mail and PPC, far and away, hands down, that's 90% of our deals that we've done in the last 7 years have been direct mail and PPC.
Super interesting. Yeah, it's funny that you use PPC as a wholesaler too, as a team of real estate agents. That's one thing that we're really getting onto this year too, is the PPC stuff. And the conversion, at least for us, it has been okay. It hasn't been great, honestly, compared to some of our other lead sources. But I just love it because it's one of those things that it's so scalable, both direct mail and PPC. You figure out the formula that makes it work, and then you just throw more money at it, and then you get an immediate ROI. And so I think that is, when you are building a business and you're building a brand, right? Like you need to kind of figure out where is that scalability if you do want to scale. And so, I mean, that's the answer right there. You built a machine and you built an engine. Well, we'll keep in the cars, right? You poured a lot of gas in that engine and it just went. And so, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of like where you are, today? You've flipped. You're clearly a successful flipper in Michigan. Did you ever keep any of those rental properties? Have you built a portfolio yourself?
Yeah, I did actually. From 2015 to 2017, I bought 25 rentals. I mean, we could have a whole show about how I did it, what I did wrong. But the end of the story, the last chapter is I sold them all in 2021
Wow.
for a variety of reasons. Number one, I didn't buy them all in the best areas. And so I was experiencing a lot of turnover and a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have had to experience if I would have bought in slightly nicer neighborhoods. That's number one. Number two, I rarely bulletproofed them when I bought them, meaning I didn't just replace mechanicals and roofs and things that were at the end of their life, but still kind of working. I just said, the roof's 20 years old. It's a 25-year roof. Leave it. The mechanicals are, 18, 20 years old, kind of at the end of their life. Leave it. Right. And so you build up 25 of these houses that have major, issues pending. At some point, the check is going to come, right? The bill is going to come for those. And it started coming. And in a very short period of time, I was eating all of my cash flow with major expenses, roofs, HVAC, AC, electric, all kinds of stuff. And coincidentally, we were sort of at the top of the market, right? House prices were surging. And I just looked at the situation, and I had started another business that I wanted to put my cash into, honestly. So I looked at it and said, when are these houses going to be worth more? Keeping in mind they're not in the greatest neighborhoods. When are they going to be worth more than they are now? And I didn't think it was going to happen in a decade. Like, I would be surprised. And so I just started cashing out and selling them all, and put that money into a different vehicle.
Okay, very cool, man. And honestly, I feel like you've got like this crystal ball. You get in at like the bottom in '08, you come out at the top of 2021.
I know.
So we might have to.
Dumb luck, or
Yeah, you gotta.
I'll say I'm smart. I'll leave it there, but I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, fair enough. And so, all right. Well, I'm kind of curious now. You divested. You must have had a pretty decent tax bill, and then
Yeah.
you go ahead and invest into a business. Like, what is this business that you're doing? This is probably where you're at today. Yeah.
So no,
No, okay.
I've got a couple different businesses. So
Okay.
that business is sort of a little different. I have a lending company. I started a hard money lending company because when I started investing in '08 and then fast forward to 2003, one thing has remained constant. People desperately need money for their deals. And most people, investors, most of them don't have the wherewithal, the discipline, whatever you want to call it, to go out and raise private money, which is the right thing to do, in my opinion. Most of them still go to hard money and things that are a little bit more like easy or automatic, right? Hard money is a light switch. I need a hard money. Here's the house. You show it to them. They say, yes, we'll fund it. And boom, it's gone, right? But they're going to charge you a lot for that. And it's a little bit more difficult to deal with the hurdles they put in front of you, as opposed to finding a high net worth individual, creating a relationship, showing them what you're doing, getting him to know, love, and trust you or her. And then they, now I need $150,000 to buy a house and flip it. They just wire me $150,000. And I go, and we have paperwork, obviously. We have a note and a promissory note and all that and mortgage. But ultimately, it's like, hey, I need 150. They're like, great, I'll send over the docs. I sign them. 150 gets wired to the title company. Easy. Way easier than hard money. But I started a hard money company because I know there's a need, right? And I've used hard money. I know the pain points, and I just tried to create a better mousetrap, a much smoother experience, way less friction. Just make it a pleasant experience, and people will come to you. So that's where I wanted to put my money as far as investing goes. My wholesaling company, like I said, in 2015, we did 100 deals, 7 figures. We have consistently done between 80 and 100 deals, depending on the year and COVID and stuff. But we've consistently also made 7 figures in profits every year. And we built a team. Like you said, I built an engine. It wasn't just the marketing, but I've got people that take incoming calls. I have people that go on appointments and get contracts. I have people that take those contracts and find an end buyer, whether it's a house flipper or a landlord who wants that house, and someone who handles all the title work, right? And so right now, as we're talking, I'm buying and selling houses that I don't know about. I don't know the address. My team is handling it. I spend, they talk about the 4-hour work week. I've got a 2-hour work week. I work about 2 hours in my main real estate business on a big week. Like on a busy week, it's 2 hours. I have a half-hour meeting with the team. I have a half an hour meeting with the leadership staff. and the other hour is just miscellaneous, checking comps for my guys, maybe if there's one that's a little tough, or just answering a problem that came up, HR issues like that. 2 hours, and I'm in and out.
Yeah.
And so it's a transactional business, wholesaling, but it can be automated, systemized, put people in place, build that engine, and I can step out of it.
Right.
So
Well, that's amazing too. And so if you're doing 80 to 100 deals a year, are you looking to scale that even more, or are you just kind of happy with where that's at and you're just like, okay, let's go on to the
yeah,
next thing?
we were looking to scale back in like 19, and then COVID hit, and it caused us to take a step back. We had to let some people go on our team, and we sort of got real lean. And what happened actually during COVID, I don't really talk about this a lot, but it's interesting since you're kind of bringing up the scaling. With the first year of COVID, our revenue went down 25% and our net profit went up 25%. So we did less and made more. And that was for the first time in my business, me and my partner, that we were like, holy crap, we didn't work that hard this year and we made more. Like let's look at that. And so we were kind of content to be in that mode. Now, fast forward to the end of 2022, we just hired an operations manager, a COO, to come in and help us kind of ramp things up a little bit. And so what happened was me and my partner were kind of unwilling to work our butts off like we were in 2019 when we weren't even making as much, but we want to scale. And so we brought this person in to help us scale, take on some of the day-to-day operations stuff that we really don't love, because I'm not a detail guy, so I don't like holding people to processes. And yes, we do have higher goals this year.
Yeah. So tell me about, I want to talk about how did that happen during COVID? Is it because you fired people and they weren't giving you an ROI basically?
Well, the way it happened was, you mentioned PPC, that you're doing that in your business. And I can't remember. I feel like you maybe implied that it's a lot of money going out and whatever. What we found in our business is, at the end of 2019, we were sending 60,000 mail pieces out every month. And so when you send out that much mail, you have to staff up your phone people. And so we were managing more people. When COVID hit, we stopped the direct mail, and we didn't need all those people to answer the phones. So direct mail is a solicitation, right? You're soliciting people to call you if they're in a certain situation. PPC, you are the one being solicited. People are looking for you. And so when you get on a call from a direct mail piece, and when you get on a call from someone who filled out a form because your PPC ad, way different conversation. In the first one with the direct mail, you're sort of trying to talk them off the ledge, let them know that you're not some scam person trying to steal their house. Like, you're trying to build rapport and get them to trust you. When someone calls you because they were looking for you at midnight because they're freaking out they're going to lose their house, and they get on the phone with you, they're instantly ready to talk. They're ready to give you information. So what we find is, the leads that we get through PPC are infinitely better and more profitable than direct mail can be, because we're soliciting them. We're trying to convince someone to sell us their house at a discount. The people that are looking for us, it's just a better. So our ROI, like cost of acquisition in PPC, has always been better. We just got way more deals from direct mail because we were doing more volume.
I see.
So when we got rid of the direct mail, it saved all the direct mail money, and it saved the money of the people that we had working for us. And so we could just scale down with less deals. We just scaled down, and because they were all PPC deals, they were all fatter. So
Super
just better
interesting.
deals, less
Yeah.
volume.
I know a lot of wholesalers today. I know a lot of them are still pretty high on direct mail, and they still do that. And I haven't heard much about PPC. So that's funny. That's funny that maybe
I
the
still
trend.
do direct mail. We
Yeah.
got back into it, and
Yeah.
because I think direct mail, I did this exercise once. I speak on stage a couple times a year, but one of the events that I speak at every year, it's usually around 800 to 1,000 people, and there's about 25 real estate investors that are speakers, and there's tons of people there that are high level. And so I did an informal poll a couple of years ago and just said, hey, between you and me, like, this isn't on stage, just me talking to people behind stage or whatever, and just said, hey, where do you get the most deals? Like, what's your best lead source traditionally? Not right now, this month or last year, but like traditionally, where do you get most of your deals? Every single one of them said direct mail. It doesn't matter if they were talking about PPC on stage or cold calling or whatever. They said, between you and me, in the last decade, direct mail. I've gotten most of my deals from direct mail. It is still a very, very, very solid way to find deals. And I think it's the most scalable because PPC is scalable to an extent. It's like a bidding process though, right? You put your money on the table and you can use that money to bid on keywords. But when that money's gone, you stop. Your marketing stops. And so if you put your limit of your budget at like say $5,000 and on the 15th of the month, you've already spent $5,000, your ads stop right then and there. You do not show up anymore on Google. So it's not really, it's scalable in a sense, but in a sense, you're just sort of trying to have a big enough pot that you never run out of money. So for me, in my market, we have a $14,000 pot every month. And we usually spend about 12,000 of it, 12, 13,000. But if I ever get to the point where we spend all 14 and my marketing stopped on the 27th of the month, I know I've got to bump up that pot. I need to do more. But what I can't do is say, all right, I want to spend $50,000 this month. It just doesn't work that way. If you're number one by spending 12,000, you're the number one ranked ad by spending, 10 or 15,000. Spending another 10,000 doesn't make you more than one. You can only be one, right?
It's a finite
and so
amount.
it's not infinitely scalable. It's only scalable to a point. Direct mail, on the other hand, if I send out 1,000 cards and get one deal, I can send out 10,000 cards and theoretically over time should get 10 deals and then so forth and so on. And then if you say I want to send out 1 million cards, you can scale it that way. There's probably a point of diminishing returns, right?
Sure.
There's probably a point where it's like, all right, I can send more cards, but I'm in a market of 500,000 people. Sending 1 million cards isn't going to help me.
Right. Very cool, man. Very interesting. Yeah, I think it's intriguing. I love how different people run their businesses different ways. And so I guess let's fast forward a bit. I'm gonna do a quick recap real quick. So you kind of
Sure.
you started off as analysis paralysis back in 03, then 08 comes and you take action, flipping houses. You kind of flip over 100 houses. Get into wholesaling 2015, join that mastermind, which changed your life. And now, you're here today and you've got a wholesaling business that is pretty much, very little involvement from you. You sold your rental properties to then invest in this business that I'm hoping you tell me about right now. And then, what else you got going on today?
So aside from the wholesaling business, like I said, I started a hard money lending company called Blitzar Capital. We're currently raising money for that, bringing in accredited investors, giving them great preferred returns. And that business is growing. I love it. I also have a podcast called Just Start Real Estate. So everyone listening is podcast listeners, I assume. I've had my podcast since 2013, and it's been going great. I've had 636 episodes, which I just did 636 today. So I spent a lot of time there, and I started a short-term rental business with my daughter just recently. The one that flipped the 3 houses. She's got a full-time job that she loves. She doesn't want to leave it. She doesn't want to be a real estate investor full-time, but she wants some other income. And so I started that business with her as just sort of like a daddy-daughter thing to do, something fun.
Oh, very nice. That must be pretty gratifying to see your daughter kind of following in your footsteps a little bit.
Yeah, it's awesome. She's 10 times better than I am. Like if I would have started when she did, I would have been so much better off. She's gonna just crush. By the time she's my age, she won't have to work for sure. She'll be crushing.
That's amazing.
She's smart.
Love that. Love it. All right, Mike. Well, we're about to head into the final part of the show, which is the final 4. But before we do, any other parting words of wisdom for the audience?
I'll probably be giving it here in a minute when you start asking me questions, but I mean, listen, I'll tell you this. This is something I'm hearing a lot lately, and it really frustrates me. And so I'll try not to get on a soapbox or be overly aggressive with the audience. But the market that we're in right now is not a bad market for real estate investors. The market we just left also wasn't bad. There's no such thing as a bad market, right? There's buyer's markets and seller's markets. So if you're a seller and it's a buyer's market, you may think it's a bad market, right? But as real estate investors, we're on both sides. We buy houses, we sell houses. So some part of the business is always good for us. And so if you're thinking about getting into real estate in any capacity, in my opinion, don't wait for the market to get, quote, better. I'm doing air quotes, sarcastic air quotes. Don't wait for it to get better. It's fine. You just have to know the market you're in and play the game that market is conducive to, right? So don't sit on the sidelines, because like we talked about earlier, there's always a reason to not do something. The reason people are using now is house prices are going down, interest rates going up. I'm not going to stay out, right? There's always going to be something, guys. Always going to be something. There's going to be a war in Ukraine. There's going to be interest rates. There's going to be China's invading Taiwan, whatever it is. Go out there and get started, because the best time to start your business was 10 years ago or 14 years ago when I started. The next best time is today, like today. Start today. Listen to this podcast. Wait till we're done, because we're going to drop gold bombs on you still. But when you're done listening to this, go start your business. Take one step.
I love that. Totally love that. I 100% agree. And that goes for buying your first house hack. That goes for starting your business. That goes for anything. It's always no one. I've never heard a single person regret saying they wish they started later. Right? It's always never. I wish they started earlier. And I know a lot of people 100%. Who have a lot of businesses. So, all right, Mike, that's very sound advice. So we are going to get into the final four. It's way better when Z's here doing that with me. But my first question is, what are you reading right now?
I just started reading a book called Swagger by Jimmy Johnson, head coach of these guys, the Cowboys, back in the early 90s, late 80s. Love him. It's a great I'm interested because it's the Cowboys, but also I'm very interested in him. He's a leader, and I just love his stuff, and it's just incredibly interesting. I don't always read business, real estate. Sometimes I read for enjoyment, but this is sort of twofold. I'm going to enjoy it because it's my team, but also I do think that Jimmy Johnson has a lot of leadership strategies and lessons learned. So
yeah, I mean the Cowboys were the dynasty of the 90s, so
yeah, they were.
Yeah. All right, man. Second question: what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
It's funny. I named my podcast after the best advice I ever received. Just start. I would listen to podcasts and things of people that I admired in all industries, all levels, and it seemed like at the end, back then at least for sure, and even now, the host would inevitably say, "What's the last? What do you want to leave the audience with? What's one piece of advice you want to leave them with?" And they would always say, "Just start. Just get started. Don't wait. Just get started." So that's the best advice I ever used. And honestly, I take that a little bit farther than most people. It's not just start your business. Sometimes it's like, just start your day. Like, stop moping around. Stop making it, like, get started. If you want to take your business to the next level, you want to go from working, doing it as a part-time hustle like I did and do it as a full-time thing. Let's go. Yeah. Let's get started, right? I'm so impatient and I'm so intolerant of people who have a million excuses why they're not starting. I'm real tough love in those situations. Real tough love. So yeah, man, just get started. Best advice.
Love that, man. What is your why?
This is probably cliche, but sorry, it's just what it is. Like my family. It just is. Like right now, I'm in a home office. My daughter is upstairs. She's staying with us. My wife's up there. She's retired. And as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to walk away, go up there and hang out with them for a while. Like, that's why I do what I do. I missed a lot when my kids were growing up because I was working. And then I missed even more when I started real estate investing because I was doing it as a side hustle. And side hustle sort of implies you're doing it at night, you're doing it on the weekends. And so I was gone even more. And I hated it, and I did want to get my priorities straight, but I knew I had to suffer for a short amount of time so that I could be happy the rest of my life. And so my why are my kids. I just want to be around them. I just love being a dad. I love being a husband. And I just that's where I want to spend my time.
Yeah.
That's why I work 2 hours a week in my business. I built that machine because I don't want it to be a job. I don't want to be doing it 40 hours a week and stressing out about it when I'm not doing it. I want to be able to spend time with my family. That's most important to me.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think it's commendable because I'm sure you could go into that wholesaling business and you could scale it to 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, right? But, when is enough enough? I think you've decided that enough is enough. And, you got your COO, like you still want to grow and scale, but you're no longer trading your time to scale. You'll pay someone else to scale. So
totally.
I love that.
100%. I definitely will pay to get my time back. There's no doubt about it.
All right, man. So last sort of question. Tell me about your first crush.
My first crush. Yeah. So my first crush was a girl that I met in, what grade was I in? 6th grade. I was new to the school. The kid that I made best friends with, it was his ex-girlfriend. He had dated her the year before, He was still madly in love with her, as much as you can be in 5th grade. So we go into 6th grade. I'm new to the school. I don't know the history. I meet this girl. She likes me. I like her. We start dating. Tons of problems with my friend after that. Like, he was clearly not okay with it. He said he was, but he wasn't. And so it was interesting. And I dated her for a year, and I was probably way too much of a putz for her. She was way better, had way more on the horizon than I did at that point. And she broke up with me halfway through the year.
Mm.
And my friend who was mad at me magically was not mad at me anymore after she broke up with me. So it was an interesting, tumultuous 6th grade year.
Wow, isn't that funny? I love that. Cool, man.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, where can people find out more about you, the things that you offer, and maybe if they want to know more about your first crush or whatever it is?
Well, a couple things. So I mentioned my podcast, Just Start Real Estate. If you guys go, if you email me at mike@mikesimmons.com, sort of like so vain to say that. It feels, I hate saying it, but mike@mikesimmons.com. You can get a hold of me there. I also created a landing page for your listeners specifically. And so I am going to call it, I'm thinking of right now. Okay, so if you go to mikesimmons.com/investify, you will get a free digital download of my book, which is called Level Jumping, which if you're watching on camera, this is it. This is the formula that I use to go from a couple of deals a month to 10 to 12 deals a month. This is how I scale to $1 million. It's in that book. And so go and check that out. And then lastly, if it's cool with you, I'm going to give out the information for the direct mail video series that I created. It's called Winning Direct Mail. So if you go to winningdirectmail.com, you can get access to that. It's totally free, no obligation, nothing. It's just free for you to use for your direct mail efforts.
Love that, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on, for being so generous with with everything that you've been giving. I'm going to go download the book myself here. And I'm looking forward to giving it a read. So, Mike, so good to talk to you, man. And we'll be in touch soon, I'm sure.
All right. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And that was Mike Simmons. Man, what a story Mike has. Man, from starting out just being a scared little 30-year-old all the way to having a multi-million-dollar wholesale business. He's got a mastermind. He's got hard money. He's doing stuff with his little girls. Not his little girls. His girls seem actually quite old. But to him, I'm sure they're still little girls. The short-term rental stuff. And he's also just dropped so many free gifts to us at the end. So go download his book. Go download the stuff that he's offering. Because this stuff is free, right? Everything that he, we talked for an hour. But he can really dive in and really get to understand how Mike scaled his businesses by doing this. And honestly, I'm going to go download his book because I'm always looking from different angles and different perspectives as to how people scaled. And so if you guys like this episode and you like this type of episode, please let us know by leaving a rating and review on iTunes. Hit me up on Instagram. I'm at the Fi Guy on Instagram. Would love to get to know you. Shoot me a message. I try to respond to all my messages. And we'll hopefully be in touch and talk soon. We'll see you guys all next week.
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.